Tonight, 2,000 registered to vote from the UK. Turkey offers cash grant for 2014 elections. And repeat offending rates drop 24% in just 4 years. Good evening. Interest from overseas as we get closer to the 2014 general elections is slowly building, and none more prominent than in the United Kingdom, where over 2,000 Fiji nationals are serving in the British Army. Our High Commission in London has now become one of our first overseas missions to establish a voter registration database.
Our High Commission in London is already well ahead when it comes to the necessary groundwork for overseas voter registrations.
We have started the preparatory work here already in the UK. We've asked our nationals to scan their Fiji passports and email it to us, and quite a lot of them are doing that already. So we are creating a database that will be useful in terms of pinpointing the areas of registration.
High Commissioner Solomara says so far feedback he has received from Fijian nationals right across the UK has been very encouraging.
In my engagement and briefings with the communities here, there is a lot of interest. Our nationals are quite interested to participate in the political processes back home. They've been encouraged with the government policies now to create equal opportunities for all Fijians. And last week in Cyprus, they shared more information about the budget to me, because it's available online. So they've read it, and we discussed it in an open forum. So there's a positive vibe out there amongst our community about what the government is doing in its development project back home.
And so it seems that while a large number of Fiji nationals are currently serving Queen and country, their hearts and minds are still well and truly on political developments back home.
According to my officers here, we have about 2,000 already registered with us. But as I say, there are more out there who have yet to respond to us. And that is why we are increasing our effort to reach out to our communities.
A team from the Elections Office is currently in New Zealand conducting overseas voter registration before moving on to Australia and then to the United Kingdom. Jeffrey Smith, Fiji One News.
The Republic of Turkey has lent its support to Fiji's new constitution, as well as the progress being made towards holding general elections in 2014. That was the message received by our first ambassador to Turkey, Robin Nair, as he handed over his credentials to Turkish President Abdullah Gül'ad. Turkey has also announced a cash grant of $100,000 towards the costs of running the elections in 2014. Ambassador Nair says Turkey is a significant economy and its diplomatic initiatives have led to its recognition as a regional power. Turkey is a member of the Council of Europe, NATO, OECD and the G20 major economies. The Ministry of Transport and Works will continue with the long overdue upgrade of sea beacons next year, with the first 2 phases of the work expected to be completed in Natovi, Levuka and Nambowalu before Christmas. Authorities are already mapping out their plans for 2014.
This is just the first phase of the sea beacon upgrade exercise. From next year, the same team will be up in the north to work on similar beacons located along some of our busiest sea routes in the country.
As I mentioned, these are the first two phases. In early next year, we intend to deploy to commence again, continue with the beacon piling exercise from Nambowalu right up to Ngalo Harbour.
With the bauxite mine in Boa and development work in the north underway, it is expected that more overseas vessels will docking there once sea beacons are upgraded.
As you're aware, there's quite a large Panamax bulk carriers that actually come through the top of Yandua and Round Island to come into Wairiki for wood chips and also over to Ngaloa for bauxite.
One of the biggest concerns by authority is vandalism.
The message, as always, is to respect the assets of the state. It's put there for a purpose, and it's there for safety reasons. For those mariners that use the sea as a means of transportation, and to many other users that use our seas as a means of survival, of fun and pleasure.
The Notobi and Levuka sea beacons cost government around $250,000, a small price to pay for ensuring safety at sea. Nrebukelangi, Fiji One News.
The Fiji Performing Rights Association hopes to meet with one of the country's recent entrants into the television market over what it claims to be unpaid music royalties. This was raised at the association's annual general meeting yesterday. According to FPRA, all major broadcasters, both radio and television, are required by law to pay royalties for music used on their airwaves.
We've been getting in touch with them because they need to be licensed for the musical content of their TV programs, and they are playing hard to get. As to the reason, I'm at a loss, but we're still persevering and hope that they'll come to their senses.
But Fiji Broadcasting Commission Chief Executive Riaz Syed Qayyum has clarified that they do not have an agreement at the moment with FPRA. Qayyum, however, confirmed that FPRA had approached them, but because of their busy schedules, both parties have not been able to sit down and discuss the matter properly. He says they are hoping to do this soon. But the bigger challenge for FPRA is piracy.
It comes under the umbrella of our constitution. It's something that everybody is obliged to respect and to adhere to. And if not, then they're not setting a good example, not only to other corporate organizations, but to the citizens of our country, say that, ignore that law.
Still ahead, beggar profiling exercise to spread to other towns. And breakthrough in Iran nuclear talks. Over the last 4 years, the rate of repeat offenders or recidivism coming out of our prisons has dropped significantly. According to Corrections Commissioner Lieutenant Colonel Ifiremi Vasu, recidivism rates have dropped by as much as 24% since 2009.
In 2009, the rate of repeat offenders stood as high as 30%. That simply meant that 3 out of every 10 prisoners that get released eventually end up again behind bars not too long after. 4 years on, that figure has dropped to just 6%.
That's a very good percentage. Most of our friends, they having 30. In 2009, we were having 39. So we are roving around the 6% now.
They have even implemented a special training program for sex offenders.
Like we brought back all those who commit sex offense from Lambasa, Lautoka, Tabeuni, Levuka. We brought them back, put a program together for them. Once that finished, then they can go back.
There is also a noticeable improvement in fewer escapees.
Last year we go up as high as 14. So this year up to now we're having only 2.
Colonel Vasu says if anything, all this points to the positive impacts of their Yellow Ribbon initiative, along with the strong support from the community as well as businesses. Jeffrey Smith, Fiji One News.
Now here's something you don't get to hear every day. A passenger has filed a formal complaint with police after he was robbed by a taxi driver. The passenger, who is a local musician, posted on social media that he had boarded the taxi from outside Lami. The passenger says that the incident happened just as he was about to pay his taxi fare. Police are now investigating the matter. Students of Wainimala Secondary School have been urged to work and study hard. That was the message from Assistant Commissioner of Police Rusiate Tundravu during their cadet pass-out parade at Wainimala Secondary School in Laselevu. After inspecting the parade, Tundravu reminded them of the hardships their parents faced every day to enable them to send and support their children at school. ACP Tundravu also reminded the parents and teachers that corporal punishment was no longer allowed in schools, and introducing cadets will assist students in their discipline and achievements in school. After a beggar profiling exercise in the capital city, Suva, the interagency task force on beggars, spearheaded by the Ministry of Social Welfare, is now planning to carry out profiling exercises in the other towns and cities around the country. Social Welfare Permanent Secretary Dr. Josepha Koroevueta says this exercise will help them identify the root causes of begging and determine the type of help beggars need. He says this profiling is a component of the new approach towards solving the issue in towns and cities in Fiji. He adds the task force is also working towards making Suva and the rest of towns and cities in Fiji a much safer place and portray a better image. He says research by the ministry has also revealed that some beggars own properties and change into rags before begging to gain public sympathy. Out of the total of 40 beggars profiled in Suva, 3 have been accommodated at St. Vincent House and a few to Heart Homes. The interagency task force was formed in June this year by the Ministry of Social Welfare and Fiji Police, along with other relevant government and non-governmental organizations. Briefly to world news now. British police are making inquiries in the South London neighbourhood where three women were rescued from decades in captivity. Police say the 3 women were held against their will in the apartment for almost 30 years. A 67-year-old couple has been arrested and released on bail in connection with the case. British police are making inquiries in the South London neighbourhood where the 3 women were rescued from. The suspects were of Indian and Tanzanian origin and had arrived in Britain in the 1960s. Police say 2 of the victims met the male suspect in London through a shared political ideology and that they lived together at an address called a collective. 6 world powers, including the United States, have reached a deal with Iran over the country's nuclear program. That's according to a tweet from a European Union spokesman. The deal comes after marathon talks that stretched into early Sunday morning. While the nature of that agreement is not known yet, it is expected to temporarily stop Iran's nuclear development and lift some of the international community's sanctions on the country. Ahead in sports, Barty crash out of Rugby League World Cup. And Warner says he detected fear in the eyes of the English. Welcome back. The Flying Fijians defeated Romania 26-7 this morning in their second-last match of the Northern Tour. This ended Romania's unbeaten record in 2013 and also set Fiji for the Barbarians clash, having gone down to Italy last weekend. Fiji led 16-7 at halftime and outscored their hosts 3-1 to end their November tour of Europe on a winning note. Fiji's tries came from bulky wonder Nemani Nandolo, Metuisela Talembula and Timothy Nagusa. Nandolo was later yellow-carded. There were no upsets in the 3 other autumn international matches this morning. The highlight, however, would be South Africa's only decisive try against France under the opening 60 seconds.
The Wallabies recorded a 21-15 win over Scotland at Murrayfield thanks to tries from Israel Folau and Chris Feau-Sautia. Despite playing with an extra man for part of the second half, after Rob Simmons was sin-binned for punching Moray low, Scotland just could not manage to cross the try line. Greg Laidlaw kicked all the hosts' points, whilst Australia's Christian Lealiifano missed 5 kicks at the posts. At the Stade de France, South Africa celebrated their 10th Test win of the year and handed France an 8th defeat over miserable 2013, recording a 1910 victory. 11 points from the boot of Monai Steyn meant France lost at home to the Springboks for the first time since 1997. In Rome, fly-half Nicolas Sanchez kicked 14 points to help a defensively astute Argentina to a deserved 19-14 win over Italy in the hosts' final test. Wellington Buya, Fiji One News.
Sweeping changes to the All Blacks for their final rugby match of the year against Ireland tomorrow morning. 5 come off the pack as management looks to remain 2013 unbeaten.
Julian Savea has hungered to make up for the time lost to sickness at the start of this tour, and at a slightly slimmer 105 kilograms, it shows.
Yeah, I lost a few kgs being sick, but you know, I think it's because of my appetite sort of went through the window, I didn't really eat, but now I can't stop eating.
There's a feast for reserve forwards getting their start this week. Luke Romano back, Stephen Luatua on the blind side, and a completely new front row. A year ago in London, the All Blacks made few changes between their third and fourth tests, and a weary team paid a heavy price. Here in Dublin, they're hoping to show that fresh is best.
Yeah, it is a reflection on what happened last year, and we need to inject some new legs in.
The focus is sharp on beating Ireland, but the methods and the depth of talent they're creating are part of a perpetual World Cup campaign. The weakest link is at number 2, with Andrew Hoare almost certainly playing his last test, unless...
Heaven forbid we lost Dane Coles and maybe Kevin Mialamu, then, you know, and he's available and playing.
So aspiring All Black hookers need to sharpen their Super 15 game next year because the selectors are hungry too.
You can watch the match live only on Sky Pacific Super Channel at 3 a.m. The Vodafone Fiji Mbati crashed out of the Rugby League World Cup with a heavy 64-0 defeat from the Kangaroos this morning. Australia piled on 11 tries, including a Jared Hayne hat-trick, and didn't concede a point for the third straight match in the second game of a semi-final double-header.
67,500 fans packed the Wembley Stadium this morning, but again it just wasn't the Vodafone Fiji Mbati's day. In fact, it would go down as one of their worst as the Kangaroos ran riot. Fiji was a standout, but it was in the Kangaroos strip over former Mbati. Jared Hayne continued his remarkable form in the centres, taking his tournament try-scoring tally to 9. Hayne got his first after being set up by Inglis. He added another on the stroke of half-time as they made the Fijians look ordinary. But a far more resilient Fijian side took to the field after the break and fought tooth and nail to get a foothold in the game, but it was all to no avail. Haynes scored his third in the 68th minute and could have had a fourth soon after, but he unselfishly set up winger Brett Morris, and Andrew Fifita completed the rout with a late try under the posts. William Tabuya, Fiji One News.
The match brought another end to Fiji captain Petro Dhivanideva's illustrious career. The stalwart, who came out of retirement to feature for the Mbati, hung his boots straight after the heavy loss.
I spoke to the boys after the game and just said how immensely proud I am of them. And yeah, I couldn't think of a better way to finish my career. And that, you know, I was around some amazing young guys, and that you know, it's going to be great now to sit back and watch their careers unfold.
We played pretty well most of the tournament. You know, penalties and errors didn't help us, and when you give the Aussies that much possession, it's, you know, definitely got some momentum, and we struggled with it. We went through a patch here in both halves. We went set for set, and we didn't look too bad, but just our consistency.
Coach Rick Stone commended his boys despite not crossing the Kangaroos try line for the second time at the tournament.
We've had a really good camp. I've never been involved in a team that is tight or as close and haven't had any problems with any of them. They've all got together really well.
Sonny Bill Williams has admitted in a tweet this morning that England was the better side during the semi-final win at the Rugby League World Cup. Sean Johnson scored a sensational last-minute try as defending champions New Zealand knocked out England to win a thrilling encounter at Wembley. England was seconds from victory when the New Zealand Warriors player eluded two players to score and then added the decisive conversion with the last kick of the match to win 20-18. Two Fiji football clubs, Lambasa and Nandi, will face off in the final in this year's Pacific Cup at Bill McKinley Park in Auckland. In the semis, Lambasa overcame AFSA Sydney in extra time 3-2, while Nandi upset Bar 1-0. Irrepressible Australian opener David Warner said he detected fear in the eyes of the English after brushing aside a troubled year off the field, with a brilliant century on it in the first Ashes Test at the Gabba. Warner scored 124 and combined with captain Michael Clark in a third-wicket partnership of 158 runs to help his country take a firm grip on the contest and leave England needing to score a record 561 runs in their fourth innings for victory. Chicago Bulls point guard Derrick Rose is out of the NBA indefinitely. During his anticipated comeback, Rose injured himself during their loss in the third quarter against the Portland Trail Blazers. The MRI confirmed a medial meniscus tear to his right knee, which will require surgery. He will not accompany the team on the rest of its current road trip. Afternoon showers and isolated thunderstorms prevailed over the country today. A trough of low pressure lies slow-moving over Solomon Islands. Meanwhile, another trough of low pressure continues to affect Tokelau, Samoa, Tonga and Niue. And that's Fiji One News. Thank you for joining us. Good evening.